I came up with the idea in a coffee-stained notebook. A simple platform to automate warehouse logistics. Something that could save companies millions. I stayed up every night for a week, working through the math, sketching diagrams, imagining how it could change everything. My apartment was a mess. Empty coffee cups everywhere. But I didn't care. I had something real. Something that could matter. I didn't know that dream would lead me straight into a nightmare. I didn't know that the worst thing wasn't failing. It was succeeding and having someone steal it right from under me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how it all started. How I went from being invisible to becoming the person everyone wanted to forget existed. No one asked me to do extra work. I did it because I believed in it. Every night after my regular 9 to 5, I coded in my apartment. I ate cold takeout at 2 in the morning. I skipped weekends with friends. They stopped inviting me out after a while. My mom called less because I never picked up. I was obsessed. I thought hard work would speak for itself. I thought if I just built something good enough, people would notice. They'd see the value. They'd see me. I was so wrong. But back then, I was hopeful. I was 26 years old, 3 years into my first real job, and I genuinely believed that talent and effort were all you needed. I didn't understand the game yet. I didn't know that some people climb by stepping on others. After 6 months, I had a working prototype. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. I tested it with sample data. I built the pitch deck myself. Made every slide, every chart, every projection. I even practiced in front of my mirror for days. I memorized every line. I imagined the questions they'd ask and prepared my answers. I was ready. Or at least I thought I was. And then came the email that changed everything. It was from Marcus Webb, the VP of Strategy. He'd never emailed me directly before. Never even said hello in the hallway. But there it was. Subject line, your logistics project. My heart jumped. I opened it immediately. And that's when everything started falling apart. Marcus told me to send him the pitch. He said he'd clean it up for the board. Said my idea was promising, but needed executive polish. He used phrases like strategic alignment and stakeholder messaging. I was nervous, but I was also excited. Finally, someone up there was noticing me. Finally, my work was getting the attention it deserved. So I sent him everything. The deck. The prototype demo. The financial projections. All of it. He replied within an hour. Just 2 words, got it. I waited for more. Maybe some feedback. Maybe a meeting invite. But nothing came. I told myself he was busy. I told myself this was normal. I kept checking my email every 5 minutes like an idiot. I didn't know I'd just handed him everything he needed to erase me. I waited by my inbox all morning. The board meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. I figured Marcus would call me in, or at least loop me into the presentation. But nothing happened. At 2:15, I saw him walk past my desk. He was smiling. I tried to catch his eye. He didn't even look my way. At 3 p.m., I found out the meeting had already happened. Without me, he went in alone, presented my work, my slides, my code, my vision. And I wasn't even in the room. My stomach dropped. I felt sick. But I told myself maybe it was just a preliminary pitch. Maybe they'd want to meet me next. Maybe this was just the first step. I still hoped for the best. God, I was so naive. A company-wide email went out that afternoon. Subject, exciting news, innovation at scale. I opened it. And there it was. Proud to share our newest innovation, led by our very own VP of Strategy, Marcus Webb. My slides. My diagrams. My financial models. My prototype screenshots. Everything I'd built. His name on every single line. My chest hurt. Literally. Like someone had punched me. I just sat there, staring at my screen, reading the email over and over. Colleagues walked by, congratulating each other. Someone said, "Marcus is a genius." I didn't move. I couldn't. I felt like I was disappearing. Like I'd never existed at all. And the worst part? No one even thought to ask who actually built it. No one cared. I knocked on his door the next morning. My hands were shaking. He smiled when he saw me. That same warm smile he'd used in the email. I asked to talk. He said, "Sure, come in." I closed the door behind me. I asked him why my name wasn't on the presentation. Why I wasn't in the meeting. He leaned back in his chair, still smiling. "This is just how things work," he said. "You're too junior for the board. They need a senior voice." Then he added, "If you ever want to rise, learn to play the game." I stood there, speechless. He wasn't apologizing. He wasn't even pretending to feel bad. That was the moment I realized he saw me as disposable. A tool, not a person. HR called me in the next day. I thought maybe someone had reported what happened. Maybe they'd help. But no. They told me not to create friction. Said I needed to think big picture. They used the word ungrateful. Said I should be proud the company was moving forward with the project. They reminded me that I was part of a team. When I mentioned my name being left off everything, they said intellectual property belonged to the company anyway. Legally, they were right. But morally, they didn't care. And then they moved me, quietly, to another team. A smaller team. Less visibility. They didn't fire me. They just buried me. I walked out of that office feeling completely hollow. Like I didn't matter at all. I went home early that day. Told my manager I felt sick. It wasn't a lie. I cried in my shower until the water ran cold. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. 16 months of work. Gone. Stolen. And no one cared. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head. Every email. Every conversation. Wondering what I did wrong. Wondering if I should have been louder, pushier, meaner. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Because 3 months before Marcus took credit for my work, I had done something he didn't know about. Something quiet. Something smart. I had filed a provisional patent. Just in case. And my name was the only one on it. I didn't tell anyone about the patent. Not my manager. Not my friends. Not even my mom. I used my own savings to file it. $2,000 I couldn't really afford. But I'd read stories online. Stories about people like me, getting their work stolen. So I protected myself. I went to a patent lawyer, explained the concept, and filed a provisional application. It gave me 12 months to file the full patent. And it established a legal date. Proof that I was the inventor. I didn't think I'd actually need it. I thought it was just insurance. But now, sitting in my apartment, staring at the patent documents on my desk, I realized it was the only thing I had left. Real proof. And I just had to wait. They moved me to a low-visibility internal team. Data cleanup. Boring stuff. I wasn't allowed to work on logistics anymore. My access to the platform was revoked. I got the message loud and clear. Shut up. Stay quiet. Disappear. But I never deleted the files. Every piece of code I'd written. Every version of the pitch deck. Every email exchange. I backed it all up. Saved it to 3 different hard drives. Printed the important stuff. I didn't know when I'd need it, but I knew I would. My new team was fine. They didn't ask questions. My new manager barely talked to me. I became invisible. And honestly, that was exactly what I needed. 3 years passed. 3 long, quiet years. I stayed at the company. Head down. I got a new manager who was kind but uninterested. I worked on boring projects. No pressure. No attention. But I kept building on the patent in private. I refined the platform. added features, improved the code. No one paid attention to me anymore. And that was their first mistake. Because while they forgot about me, I was getting stronger, smarter, more prepared. I watched Marcus get promoted, watched him give talks, watched him build his brand on my work. And every time I saw his face, I reminded myself to wait, to be patient, to let him think he'd won. Because the higher he climbed, the harder he'd fall. Then, out of nowhere, I got a call. A logistics startup in Denver. They'd been researching patents in warehouse automation. They found mine. It was public record now. They wanted to talk licensing. They asked if I was the creator. I almost laughed. I said yes. We set up a call. They were young, hungry, and smart. They'd seen Marcus's presentations too. They knew he worked at my company. But the patent had my name, not his. They asked me directly, "Did you build this?" I told them the truth. Everything. They listened. They believed me. And then they made me an offer. That's when I knew. The moment had come. I brought everything to a lawyer. The patent. Timestamps on every file. Code repositories with my commits. Emails showing I'd sent the work to Marcus. She reviewed it all carefully. Took her time. When she finally looked up, her eyes were wide. "You own this," she said. No question. She explained my options. I could sue the company. I could negotiate. Or I could license the patent to someone else. She also said that if Marcus or the company had used my patent without permission, they'd violated intellectual property law. And that meant leverage. Serious leverage. She told me I had a choice. Stay quiet or go loud. I chose loud. Denver offered me 6 figures up front, plus royalties on every deal they closed using the platform. I signed. We filed the full patent, making everything public. My name, my invention, the exact dates I'd filed the provisional. 3 weeks later, the fallout began. Denver sent a licensing request to my company. Formal. Legal. It included the patent number and my name as the sole inventor. Marcus's assistant forwarded it to him. Then to legal. Then to the CEO. I wasn't in those rooms. But I heard about the panic. The yelling. The confusion. Because Marcus had already pitched the platform to investors. Raised money based on it. And now they found out he didn't own it. I did. Marcus stormed into the legal department. I heard about it from someone who was there. He was furious, demanded to know how this happened. He tried to claim he'd helped develop the platform, that it was collaborative work. But the lawyers pulled up the patent filing. My name, my signature, filed months before he ever saw the project. They asked him if his name was on any of the original files. It wasn't. They asked if he'd contributed any code. He hadn't. He tried to say I'd signed an employment contract giving the company rights to my inventions. And technically I had. But the patent was filed as a personal project outside of work hours with no company resources. The lawyers looked at him, and they knew. He'd stolen it. I got called into a meeting with HR, legal, and the CEO. They all looked confused. Marcus wasn't invited. I walked in calm. I sat down. They asked me to explain everything. So I did. Slowly. Clearly. I showed them the patent. The dates. The code repositories. The emails proving I'd done the work alone. I explained that I'd filed the patent before Marcus ever saw the project. That I'd used my own money. My own time. They asked why I didn't tell anyone. I said, because I didn't think I needed to. The room went silent. The CEO looked at me for a long time. Then he looked at the lawyers. I'd never seen Marcus so quiet. He just sat there, staring at the table. News leaked. I don't know how. But within a week, investors were asking questions. Pulling out of deals. The project was scrapped. The stock dipped 2%. Not huge, but noticeable. A memo went out about leadership transitions. Corporate speak for someone getting fired. Marcus's name disappeared from the website. His LinkedIn updated to seeking new opportunities. His office was cleaned out overnight. People stopped talking about the platform. They stopped talking about him. It was like he'd never existed. And somewhere in the middle of all that chaos, I sat at my desk, doing my boring data work, watching it all unfold. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just watched and waited for the next move. He sent me a message. Late at night. Just one line. You made your point. No apology. No acknowledgement of what he'd done. Just bitterness. Just anger. Like I was the one who'd wronged him. I read it 3 times. Then I took a screenshot. Printed it. Framed it. I put it in a box. Someday I'd hang it in my office. Wherever that office ended up being. Because that message wasn't about me. It was about him. He still didn't get it. He still thought this was a game he'd lost. He didn't understand that he'd stolen someone's life. Someone's dream. And he didn't care. That message told me everything I needed to know. He'd never change. And I'd never regret what I did. The CEO called me into his office a week later. Just the 2 of us. He offered me Marcus's position. Said they wanted to highlight real talent. Said the board was impressed by my integrity. By my work. He laid out a salary. Benefits. A title. VP of Innovation. I sat there, listening. And then I said no. Politely. Respectfully. But firmly. He looked surprised. Asked why. I told him the truth. Because I already have a better offer. He nodded slowly. He didn't argue. I think he respected it. Or maybe he was just relieved. Either way, I walked out of his office for the last time. Free. Completely free. And it felt better than any promotion ever could. Marcus left without a party. No LinkedIn post. No goodbye email. No farewell lunch. Just a silent walk to the elevator on a Thursday afternoon. I happened to be in the lobby when he walked past. He didn't look at me. Didn't say anything. Just kept walking. People avoided eye contact. Pretended to be on their phones. It was brutal. Funny how no one remembered his name anymore. Funny how quickly people forget you when you stop being useful. I watched him disappear through the glass doors. And I felt nothing. No anger. No satisfaction. Just relief. Because that chapter was over. And mine was just beginning. I turned around and headed back upstairs. I still had 2 weeks left. I joined Denver as head of product 2 weeks later. They flew me out. Set me up with an apartment. Introduced me to a team of kind, smart people who listened when I talked. Who asked questions. Who cared. We scaled fast. The platform finally got the spotlight it deserved. We landed 3 major clients in the first 2 months. 6 more by the end of the quarter. Revenue climbed. The team grew. And this time, my name was everywhere. On the patents. On the press releases. In the board meetings. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't disposable. I was the person who built the thing everyone wanted. And it felt right. Finally, it felt right. 3 months after I joined Denver, I got invited to speak on an industry panel. Innovation and Ethics in Tech. I almost said no. But then I saw the attendee list. And guess who was registered? Marcus. He'd taken a consulting job. Was trying to rebuild his reputation. I accepted the invite. The day came. I sat on stage with 4 other panelists. The room was packed. And there he was. 3rd row. Staring at me. The moderator asked me about overcoming challenges in my career. So I told the story. Top to bottom. I didn't use his name. I didn't have to. Everyone knew. The whole room clapped when I finished. He just stared at the floor. Didn't clap. Didn't move. Just sat there. And I smiled. 2 months later, Wired magazine reached out. They wanted to feature our team, the platform, the story behind it. I did the interview, told them everything. They fact-checked it all, verified the patent, talked to the lawyers. When the article came out, the headline read, "Inventor of the Year, How One Woman Outsmarted Corporate Theft." And below it, in bold letters, was my name. Not Marcus's. Mine. The article went viral. LinkedIn exploded. People shared it everywhere. I got messages from hundreds of people. Some told me their own stories. Others just said thank you. My mom called, crying. My old friends reached out. And for the first time in years, I felt seen. Truly seen. Not for what I could do for someone else, but for who I actually was. People asked me if I'd do anything differently. Interviewers, podcast hosts, friends. I always said no. I did it by the book. I stayed honest. I stayed kind. I stayed patient. I didn't burn bridges. I didn't trash Marcus publicly. I just protected my work. And when the time came, I let the truth speak for itself. And in the end, the work spoke louder than the thief ever could. That's the thing about stealing someone's dream. You can take credit. You can take the spotlight. You can even take the promotions. But you can't take the proof. You can't erase the person who actually built it. And eventually, the truth comes out. Always. So if you're reading this or listening to this and you're in the same position I was, just know this. Document everything. Protect your work. And don't give up. Because your name matters. And someday, everyone will know it.